Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back, everybody.
So, before we get going, if we could all envision, and we might want to start with the area over there with the Ukraine and Donbass and Lugansk and Russia and all the chaos that's starting to happen over there. If we can envision that area and the whole globe just embraced in this pure crystalline white light.
Right. I mean, this is what's needed in these times to help raise the vibration and raise people up and out of that fear category where we're putting off the loosh.
It's a fine line, because we have to kind of know what's going on, obviously. Unless we're blessed with being somewhere way out in the middle of nowhere and we have our own little homestead and we could just kind of do our own thing. That's, God bless anybody in that position. That is a huge blessing. But those light workers and those that are in the middle of this multidimensional battle, and how else would you really describe spiritual warfare? Because, describe spiritual warfare. What is it? What's spiritual? Well, something of a different vibration, right? We tend to think spiritual as being a higher vibration than 3D. Yet, really, everything all around us is so interconnected. And in some ways, the higher densities are standing on the foundation of the lower densities. As above, so below. And what happens here matters elsewhere as well.
Very important to recognize that it's not just all about us as beings. There's a lot more involved here, and once we start to realize that and look around our world in which we live, you can look at things with a new light, a different understanding, and it helps you kind of navigate this crazy world we're in.
When I was doing mantras and meditation, Cindy said to me, they want you to, and this means our guides, they want you to hold a vision of the U.S. enveloped in a white light. That's why I was sharing this with you guys now. So you can do the same. Because what we also get is that the chaos that's coming, it might not be long after as it appears, whether you want to call it invasion, war, whatever, conflict is rekindling. Well, it appears that this can expand rapidly in different directions that can lead to massive confusion. And that's one of the scenarios that we have seen as far as possible timelines, is a timeline in which, perhaps not too far off at all, we might find ourselves in some sense in a land of confusion because things have expanded so rapidly in ways we didn't necessarily see coming.
Oh, I can agree with that 100%. A lot of things coming down the pipes, a lot of information to take in every day. There's so much news out there, and there's so many different vibrations for us to deal with and process that it's insanity right now.
You see that patch, the home of the free because of the brave. And these are two guys who stormed Normandy that are now 100. And, my father served in World War II, so did my grandfather and my uncle. And, there was this thinking of, white hats, black hats. Just everything is so simple. But we know now it's not so simple. We understand that there's this group of beings that control through chaos and conflict. And somebody has said, everybody says there's these controllers, but nobody ever says who they are. And yeah, we have. We've said that so many times. Look through different videos, go in deeper. Yeah, the controllers, ultimately, the real controllers are not Homo sapiens. And that's the part that would blow many people's minds. But that's going to be revealed in the not too distant future as well. That's going to be part of this great apocalypse. Now, these guys, they thought they were doing something just totally right and righteous. And yet we now know that Pearl Harbor, for instance, they knew it was coming. They knew it was coming. And when we think of all American as, apple pie, Chevrolet, Ford, and we talked about Henry Ford's connections to the Nazis, the Catholic Church actually backed the Nazis. it's very, very twisted. Pope John Paul II was a salesman for a company that sold the cyanide for the gas chambers. Hello, it's time to wake up. And, we look at the Bush family and their ties to the Skull and Bones. Secret societies are how they work. They have people placed in all levels of, the political spectrum. In so many positions, they're so entrenched that they truly do control everything from the shadows. And they operate from the shadows. So the real controllers, again, even the real controllers on the human level, they're not seen all the time. They might not even be known. And certainly the controllers of the non-human level are not seen.
No, I mean, that definitely would not behoove them in any way to make themselves known. This has to look like it's coming from other human beings like ourselves. That's the best way for them to fulfill their agenda.
People have innate intuitive abilities. Psychic abilities are just another aspect of the human condition. They've just been suppressed. So we do have the ability, when we're not fed water with, fluoride in there, to calcify your pineal gland and also to make you kind of submissive. This is what, again, Nazi Germany did in World War II to people in the camps. It made people docile, and it just inhibits their reasoning ability. So when we look at all these prophecies, and we're going to take a glance at a couple again, I just want to reiterate, because you could so clearly see how it would be easy to see that they are manifesting now as we speak. Can we avert them? I think we could change a lot of outcomes. It is the case that what we have gotten at the end of every Kali Yuga, there's always a major global conflict, one in which the people finally realize that this is completely contrived and manufactured. It's not about what they say it's about. And that's when the people refuse to take part in the system anymore. And the system starts to just crumble and deteriorate. How quickly we could get to that point of recognition where the people that are going to be doing the battling, lay down their weapons and say, basically, screw this. That's the quicker, the better. That's the key. When we look at wars and rumors of wars, we talk about, that prophecy that's in Matthew and Mark, there's never been a time when there wasn't wars. It's been nonstop warfare during the whole 5,000 years that we have recorded as far as our history. And we go quite a bit farther back than that. But just looking at this is some of the wars of the 21st and 20th century and the amount of people dead. And, there's a lot of here that people aren't going to even realize. So if you look to 2014, 2016 Ukraine Civil War, 9,500 lost. How about South Sudan Civil War? 400,000 lost in 2013 to 2018. How many people realize that? How about Syria's 400,000? Iraq, these numbers I think are much higher too when we're talking about the Iraq War, 150,000. It just goes on and on and on. And then, of course, we have the bigger wars like World War II, in which so many millions were lost. And, Mao's China against Tibet, we have no clue how many Tibetans lost their lives, unfortunately. World War II, 55 million. Chinese Civil War, 1.2 million. This is this world in a Kali Yuga. It's just that simple. USA Civil War, 628,000. And the Ottoman genocides, and you could see, this is a sad fact. World War I, 20 million. It's just a sad fact of the world that we live in. And we see the Hopi Prophecy, and I bring it up because the guide said this is probably the most accurate one of the ones that we have gotten.
It is. It's the one when I feel this with my energy body and come to an understanding. I don't want to say that it resonates the most, because resonating can mean that you kind of agree with it. It's what is true the most, because not everything in here do I like or do I agree with, but it's what comes in my energy field as the most true.
And again, things are always subject to change, and also we really truly are hoping for whatever the higher powers can do to help us. And they are always trying to help us, but they're also working within the confines of human free will. So it states World War III will be started by those people who first revealed the light, which is divine wisdom or intelligence, in the other old countries like India, China, Islamic nations, Africa. The United States will be destroyed, land and people, by atomic bombs and radioactivity. They actually described it as these gourds that came down and boom, blasted everything. And it says only the Hopis and their homeland, the Four Corners area, will be preserved as an oasis to which refugees will flee. And it really talks also about the fact that this is a spiritual conflict with material matters. Material matters will be destroyed by spiritual beings who will remain to create one world and one nation under one power, that of the Creator. It's interesting. I mean, there's so many more pieces to this. There's so many more things that sound very, very accurate in it. Now, the Galactics have said that they will not allow a nuclear conflagration again, and that would be a blessing. And isn't it curious that one of the things that was broken when 45 went in there was an agreement to how small those weapons can be, because they had to be at a certain level or higher, which almost sounds like why, but it's because of, again, going under certain thresholds, because they don't know how far they could push. How far can they push? This is them. They're always trying to see how far they could push. The Hopi say that on Purification Day, a red army will cover the earth like red ants. Doesn't that sound like something we know, like the CCP could do? And then, of course, we have the army of 200 million mentioned biblically as well. China could do that. And if India was on China's side, then most certainly that would be very easy. And then this particular article, ushistory.org, Valley Forge, about Washington's vision, it says it's a fictional work that was written in 1861, but there's also sources, if you look clearly, and I've researched this for years, that say that no, this was supposed to be something that he said by one of the people that had heard him, was with him there, and then gave it to a newspaper person who then did this story. Any way you look at it, it's still curious, because it does talk about, the revolution, the Civil War, and it talks about a war to come. And I heard a mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." At this, the dark, shadowy angel placed a trumpet to his mouth and blew 3 distinct blasts, and taking water from the ocean, he sprinkled it upon Europe, Asia, and Africa. Then my eyes beheld a fearful scene. From each of these countries arose thick black clouds that were soon joined one into the other. Throughout this mass there gleamed a dark red light, by which I saw hordes of armed men who, moving with the cloud, marched by land, sailed by sea to America. Our country was enveloped in this volume of a cloud, and I saw vast armies devastate the whole country and burn the villages, towns, and cities that I had beheld springing up. And he's talking about earlier in the story, it talks about all the towns and cities springing up everywhere, and then the trains that connect, and all these things, the growth of the new nations. So that's again reiterating that. But this is obviously an invasion, and our country was enveloped in this volume of cloud. I saw vast armies devastate the whole country, burn the villages, towns, and cities that I beheld springing up. As my ears listened to the thundering of the cannon, clashing of the sword, and the shouts and cries of millions in mortal combat, I again heard the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." When the voice had ceased, the dark shadowy angel placed his trumpet once more to his mouth and blew a long and fearful blast. Instantly a light as of 1,000 suns shone down from above me and pierced and broke into fragments the dark cloud which had enveloped America. And, it does say that eventually, that when it looks like all is lost, the people push back and push off the invaders. And then, of course, we have Babylon the Great. "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins. Then you will not suffer any of the terrible punishments she will get. The city's sins are piled up as high as the heaven. God has not forgotten the wrong she has done, given that city the same as she has given to others. Pay her back twice as much as she did. Prepare the wine for her that is twice as strong as the wine she prepared for others. She gave herself much glory and rich living, giving her that much suffering and sadness. She says to herself, I am a queen sitting on my throne. I'm not a widow. I will never be sad. So in one day she will suffer great hunger, mourning, and death. She will be destroyed by fire. And, it goes on and talks about how people will look from the sea at her burning and just bemoan all the amazing things that she used to give to the world as far as goods and luxuries and stuff. But everything is destroyed in 1 hour, and they're fearful of even getting close to her. So interesting, again, this could mean the system, or it could mean, the sacrifice of the U.S. and NATO as well, as I've always felt that was the case.
You know what strikes me, and I'm not sure what you think of it, but the word they use, her and she. Yeah. They use that a lot in there, and to me, it talks about the imbalance that we live in today.
Absolutely, because they've so distorted and twisted everything. Pray to your Father in heaven, but what about your mother that's under your feet? Mm-hmm. What about the mother that's in your heart? And that motherly aspect is what has been taken away from people. And the motherly aspect is what brings us healing, what brings us compassion. So, yeah, absolutely. This is completely another piece in that distortion that just drives us to incessant warfare. It's Machiavellian in that they get us to fight against ourselves. They put in our mind a negative connotation to things that really could be things that would benefit us purposely. And here you see a quote from the U.S. project of turning Ukraine into a vassal state while pretending to care about its sovereignty. You couldn't have picked a far worse face than a guy who helped organize the coup of 2014 and then got his son a lucrative gas company board seat in the immediate aftermath. Yeah, and when you listen to his words, talk about the pot calling the kettle black, and the beady black eyes that used to be blue. But again, this doesn't even feel like there's any semblance of a human being in here anymore. Okay, they're quoting him here. Who in the Lord's name? He didn't get that out quite right. Does Putin think gives him the right to declare the new so-called countries or territories that belong to his neighbors? Well, we're going to look at the history as well. Let's listen to this just to give you.
So I'm going to begin to impose sanctions in response far beyond the steps we and our allies and partners implemented in 2014. And if Russia goes further with this invasion, we stand prepared to go further as with sanctions. Who in the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare new so-called countries on territory that belong to his neighbors? This is a flagrant violation of international law, and it demands a firm response from the international community.
Thoughts?
I don't know. First of all, just the hollowness of it all that he's reading off a screen. I mean, there you go. Those are your people that create the script, have other people to stand in like puppets to read the script.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very bad actor. Mm-hmm. A very bad actor.
But acting nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, you can see right through it. Mm-hmm. And that's just an obvious thing. I think most of the people that, probably 99% of the people that will listen to this video will see right through it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So as we see, Justin Putin says Minsk agreements no longer exist. Ukraine must be demilitarized and give up NATO ambitions. And so the Minsk agreements are what happened when it was ceasefire in September 2014. And again, many people lost their lives. The people of the world, I believe the vast majority of the people of the world want peace. That's all they want. And I think the vast majority of the people of the world really would enjoy experiencing another place's culture. It's wonderful to, explore a culture, take part in it, maybe enjoy some of its food and, the finer things in life. We don't want to just be killing each other all the time. Most people don't. Now, there are people that make money, and their whole livelihood is based on conflict, for sure. And again, go back to the Tower of Babel. This is how they control us. You can't have humanity divided. Who knows? I mean, united. Who knows what they could do? They might, figure out the whole thing. So come, let us go down there and let us confuse them, confound them, and disperse them. Can't have them being united. That is the most key statement in the whole Bible. And that really exposes the controllers. And so here we see you have a lot of fire going on. There's definitely, it's already rising as far as the conflict. Things are still being moved into place. As you see, NATO has put more than 100 fighter jets on high alert, and 120 Allied ships are underway. And what Stoltenberg called the most dangerous moment for European security in a generation, since WW2. Of course, WW1, the war to end all wars, but it didn't. WW2 didn't either. Actually, wars never stop. No. They never do, because they're not meant to be won even. Or, there's a temporary respite, and then there we go again. We'll find another conflict to create. Get the people distracted, especially when they're waking up in masses.
And get them against each other. That's the most important thing. Make them feel like there's only this side or that side that they have to choose from. And, if their friends and neighbors and family don't choose the side they choose, then let's make sure that they argue and fight over that.
So Russia moved 10,000 troops into the contested areas in 12 hours' time. And you see this is from about 3 hours ago. On the move. It's just really a question of how it's going to escalate. A lot of people notice the strange Z's on many of the Russian vehicles. So a popular Russian language telegram channel is claiming the vehicles with the Z will be used in the Kharkiv direction, the triangle for units going towards Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. And the circle for the mobile reserve hasn't been confirmed. No, it doesn't necessarily mean this is World War Z, so to speak.
Right? Yeah.
But it gets you wondering, right? Is this the war that the zombies wake up?
Right.
Well, or is it a war that's going to be fought by mostly zombies? There was 2 Blackhawks that crashed. I believe it was in Colorado. And they were following each other, and then they crashed. And they fell on a ski slope. And, luckily nobody got hit. There's been an awful lot of accidents.
Yeah. Well, it's not just those. I mean, I think there's other things behind them too. I think there's certain computer chips that might have backdoors in them too.
Absolutely. So the USS Nimitz is leaving. This is leaving San Diego. There's already a ton deployed. Interestingly enough, again, most of the forces are in a position to fight China, which is the interesting part. Mm-hmm. That really is interesting. But again, when you see it really go down, because this is just a trickle escalation at this moment, though it is escalating, it very, very likely could go hot in other zones.
Yeah, and I mean, it could happen really, really fast. And I think the key here is to understand, where do we put our energy? Where do we place our understanding while they're fussing around us? Because all of this is going to happen no matter what we do. I mean, we're going to be kind of like the center of the storm of a hurricane, and we have to figure out a way to find peace in that.
Absolutely. So Russian forces are shelling the Luhansk power station as well. And a shell fired from Ukraine completely destroyed a Russian border point in the Rostov region. So you can see the direction things are going. Ukraine seems to be relocating all state emergency service aircraft from Nizhyn Air Base towards Kiev urgently. And we see employees of the Russian consulate in Odessa apparently burning documents. We're going to get ready to have a barbecue.
Yeah, that's great. Yay.
That doesn't seem too urgent, does it?
No.
Yeah, I'll throw one on, then I'll throw another. So defense officials tell Carla Babb, POTUS troop announcement on deploying forces to the Baltic nations. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania includes deploying 1,000 troops, U.S. troops there from Italy, and some F-35s moving up from Greece and Germany. And keep an eye on Syria still, because, I mean, that's a mess area, and things could break out there really quick. U.S. troops in Poland are working with Polish forces to set up processing centers for tens of thousands of people who are expected to flee the neighboring Ukraine if Russia launches that full-scale invasion of the country. And again, it's that refugee crisis. You know, again, this country, well, you know, they booted out the people that were here and took in a lot of migrants from elsewhere. And, you know, it might happen all over again in another way. Another way, because again, maybe this is the promised land. She knows where I'm going with this. Is this something that keeps coming up to me? It's like, you know, we've talked about the promised land, and we've talked about how the Israelites went into Canaan and pushed out all the people that were already there because their God told them that this is going to be something he's given to them. But, you know, the people that were there didn't necessarily recognize their God. That was their God. And again, when you look back to, how was life in Sumeria? How was life, you know, over there in the Fertile Crescent and Acadia and Sumeria? Well, all the city-states had their own deities, and they were constantly fighting each other. It never has stopped. This is the way of the world. It's just history repeating itself time and time and time again. And again, the U.S. gathered up so many indigenous people, Trail of Tears, and, you know, sent them away from their homes and just said, you're going to live here now. And, you know, nothing you could do about it. And then we see that Babylon the Great, and we just think in terms of karma, too. Because as we said, the U.S. has been at war over 95%. There's only been a handful of years since its inception that it hasn't been at war. So, you know, when we look back to that statement by that 2005 Chinese general that said that when they hit about 1.4 billion people, they would either have to lose about half the population or they'd need to have land equal to Canada, Australia, or the U.S., or any combination therein, in order to have what Hitler called Lebensraum, living space. And aren't we seeing that play out right now? I mean, can you imagine if ultimately what is planned is, again, to herd up the people and tell them where they're going to go? Maybe smart cities. Maybe there's going to be, 10 zones and so many smart cities, and everybody's going to be herded up and away.
Right. And I mean, let's not forget that I don't think those who do control this plane of existence they'll do it again. They did it to the Native Americans that were here once. We really shouldn't find ourselves any different.
Why wouldn't they? And this is when I see people comment all the time when we're talking about events like this, not so much on this channel, but other places. There'll be somebody that says, nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens. Did you look at a list of these wars? Nothing ever happened in your backyard. That doesn't mean it can't happen in your backyard this time.
That's so true. Yes, remember that.
But all over the world, people are constantly suffering from the devastation and the horrors of war. So we're looking at some satellite imagery over here as we see, again, the buildup is continuing on both ends as we see some NATO planes. I was watching, and I'll let Monkeyworks do his thing because he goes into greater detail that we're going to have time to go into with all the military movements, but it did seem like there was a lot of transports up today. 2 reconnaissance aircraft. This is of the Russian Aerospace Forces operating in the sky today. There's also definitely a lot of AWACS up there and on both sides. And we see smoke billowing from the Russian embassy in Kiev. And this video shows the impacts of a grad MLRS. And you just think about, these are just people's homes and neighborhoods. Now, Syria has gone through this for a long time. Of course, Iraq and Afghanistan as well. And here we are now looking in this area. As we see more and more troops, more and more tanks making their way. And we have a breaking here. The Ukraine army says 1 soldier killed, 6 wounded in the war-torn east. And this gets into the history of Donbass, Donetsk, and Luhansk regions. And, it's good to learn history and see how things have changed. Some areas, they just suffer from generation to generation to generation. Sometimes your blessings can be your curse as well. Areas that may be very, very good areas for providing food, real bread baskets, so to speak, that people covet, will change hands time and time and time again. And I just wanted to show you guys the maps of Europe and just give you like a timeline on how some of these change. So this is in 2000, right? And so many of us are familiar. You see Ukraine, here's Crimea, right? And this is, part of the area that we're talking about. We see Russia, Belarus. Here you have Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. And of course, we have Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan. And if we go back over here and we look at around 1949, and you see the Soviet Union, well, of course, Crimea and this whole area we were talking about, the Ukraine, that was all part of the Soviet Union. And then everything here in red was controlled by the Soviet Union. So even though it wasn't officially part of it, it was totally controlled. And we had, remember that great divide with the wall? West Germany and East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Romania, and the small Baltic states there. Now we go back to 1914 and we see the Russian Empire, and there's Crimea, and this is the area that we're talking about, and it's part of Russia in 1914. This is right at the outbreak of World War I. Then you had the Austria-Hungarian Empire. And when we asked my aunt, who was like 95 when she passed on, she was saying of how we had relatives that were part of the Austria-Hungary Empire, but yet that same area was part of Poland at one time. It was part of the Ukraine another time. It's constantly changing. This is the point. And here you see Germany and the other nations in Poland. And over here now we're going to jump, going back farther, going back to 1800. And again, you see Crimea as part of Russia, and Ukraine, part of Russia. And then you had Hungary and Transylvania, Galicia, Bohemia, Austria, right? So Croatia was much bigger, East Prussia. So again, it's always changing, always. And it's because of this nonstop, never-ending warfare. And here we go back again, and you see Crimea, Ukraine, part of Russia. But you do see the Ottoman Empire as well down in here, and the Persian Empire. And you see Prussia, yes, and some countries that you probably never even heard of before. And so this one, we're going back quite a ways. And look at that. The Khanate of Crimea, or the Little Tartaria. Tartaria. That's very interesting in and of its own right. And there you have the Tsardom of Muscovy, and you have the Ukraine, much smaller but separate. Yet if we go back even farther, we see changes again, and there's the Tartars again. Tartaria, that's, an interesting subject, as we were saying, in its own right. The Commonwealth of Poland and Lithuania. So, here, this is in 1600. It's just always changing. Pick a year, you're going to see a totally different map. And this is going back to around 1000. And you see the Kievan Rus, because the capital of Russia was Kiev, which is the capital of, Ukraine, modern day. So it's always changing. The Holy Roman Empire, remember? And the Byzantine Empire, the predecessor to the Ottoman Empire. Never-ending conflict, never-ending warfare, constantly changing maps. And when I heard 46 talking about, invading a sovereign country and everything, it's again, that's something that's always going on in this world that is dominated by leadership that uses war as the primary tool of keeping the masses, occupied in so many ways.
I know, and you gotta admit that they don't take a lot of responsibility for the things that they do to this earth that really hurt her, and it hurts our health. It harms us as human beings. And if it's so harmful for us, and if it's only human beings that are running this earth, why would they be killing themselves? Unless you open your mind up to, well, maybe these controllers aren't exactly human. Then it starts to make sense.
Absolutely. How about the mining operations that are so ancient that there's no way Homo sapiens could ever do them? I mean, there's mining operations that have been around longer than Homo sapiens have been around. Who is mining? Right. Come on. It's so obvious when you go deeper in. And yes, we do need warriors. We need the warriors of the rainbow. That's the Hopi Prophecy also. And this talks about a day of awakening when all the people of all the tribes are going to form a new world of justice, peace, freedom, and recognition of the Great Spirit. It's so easy as if you wanted to just simply say, Father Sky, Mother Earth. That's a really simple, simplistic way of looking at Shiva and Shakti, or any sort of way you want to do the divine feminine, divine masculine, of consciousness embodied.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, a lot of this information is very beautiful for your soul. A lot of this information, when it comes to spirituality, it's very, very healing. And we talk about warriors of the rainbow. These are all of you guys, you guys who put the time in to try to understand Mother Earth and try to understand the world in which we live in a peaceful way.
There would come a time when the keepers of legends, stories, cultural rituals, and myths, and all the ancient tribal customs would be needed to restore us to health. They would be mankind's key to survival. They would be the warriors of the rainbow. There will come a day of awakening when all the people of all tribes would form a new world of justice, peace, freedom, and recognition of the Great Spirit. The warriors of the rainbow would spread the messages and teach all peoples of the earth, or Elohi. Elohim. This is curious, isn't it? They would teach them how to live the way of the Great Spirit. They would tell them of how the world today has turned away from the Great Spirit, and that is why the earth is sick. The warriors of the rainbow would show the peoples that this ancient being, the Great Spirit, is full of love and understanding, and teach them how to make the earth, or Elohi, beautiful again. These warriors would give the people principles or rules to follow to make their path right with the world. These principles would be those of the ancient tribes. The warriors of the rainbow would teach people of the ancient practices of unity, love, and understanding. They would teach of the harmony amongst the people in all four corners of the earth. Like the ancient tribes, they would teach the people how to pray to the Great Spirit with love that flows like a beautiful mountain stream and flows along the path to the ocean of life. Once again, they would be able to feel joy and solitude and in councils. They'll be free of petty jealousies and love all mankind as their brothers, regardless of color, race, or religion. They would feel happiness enter their hearts and become as one with the entire human race. Their hearts would be pure and radiate warmth, understanding, and respect for all mankind, nature, and the Great Spirit. They would once again fill their minds, hearts, and souls and deeds with the purest of thoughts. And they would seek the beauty of the Master of Life, the Great Spirit. They would find the strength and beauty in prayers and in solitude of life. The children would once again be able to run free and enjoy the treasures of nature and Mother Earth, free from the fears of toxins and destruction wrought by the Yonigi and their practices of greed. The rivers again would run clear, the forest be abundant and beautiful. The animals and birds will replenish. The powers of plants and animals would again be respected, and conservation of all that is beautiful would become a way of life. The poor, sick, and needy would be cared for by their brothers and sisters of the earth. These practices would again become part of their daily lives. The leaders of the people will be chosen in the old way, not by political party or who could speak the loudest, who could boast the most, or by name-calling or mud-slinging, but by those whose actions spoke the loudest. Those who demonstrated their love, wisdom, and courage, and those who showed that they could and did work for the good of all, would be the chosen ones as the leaders or chiefs. They'll be chosen by their quality, not the amount of money they had obtained. Like the thoughtful and devoted ancient chiefs, they would understand the people with love and see that their young were educated with love and wisdom of their surroundings. They would show them that miracles can be accomplished to heal this world of its ills and restore it to health and beauty. And so it goes on, but that's the basic understanding is, we are going to come to a place where we'll understand the ancient ways. Why do you think they put all the fear of all the ancient ways? They'll label it as, oh, that's just New Age stuff. Well, the ones that want you to fear the ancient ways, there's the controllers. And they want you to worship the controllers' ways, which is divisiveness and dogma, and just keeping us constantly fighting each other.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's so important that they keep us fighting each other and keep us tattling on each other. That's really important too, keep a division and make us afraid of each other, all of these things. But let's pull together. Let's not let that happen, and let's create this new world because we're here now.
So again, see the world enveloped in a pure white light, and you might want to envision that light maybe with a tinge of violet, because violet's a very, very high vibrational frequency. Or you could also end up going through the white to the violet and then envision it all encased in a golden light, which is a very, very angelic light as well.
Yes, let's use our abilities. Let's use our source-given abilities to make this transition. Everything that we see here, it's going to happen. There's not much we can do as far as, what they're doing on the external side of things with all of these all of this chaos and everything. All of that's going to happen, but what can we do? We can find peace, and we can envelop this globe, this beautiful planet that we live in. We can envelop it in light and healing and let all of this stuff fade away so we can bring in a new time.
As always, guys, thank you so much for your support on Patreon, also on Ko-Fi, and also at Medicinal Foods. Use coupon code EEA to get a discount on your order. There's a link at the top of every video. Great stuff there that could boost your immune system, help you detox. And also check out evolutionaryenergyarts.com. Learn more about our services, what we do, which actually does occupy most of our time, which is things like energy work, Vedic charts, spiritual coaching, and the like. Much love. Namaste and God bless.
Namaste.